Thanks for joining us after the Browns' 41-16 win over the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday. Doug Lesmerises, Ashley Bastock, Mary Kay Cabot, Dan Labbe, and Scott Patsko. What do we think, Mary Kay, starting with you?
You know what, you guys, this felt like a sea change to me in this season. It really felt like this could be a season-saving victory. They really needed this one. They evened their record, obviously, at 5-4. Now, the Ravens did win today, but still, this felt to me like what the Cleveland Browns were sort of supposed to look like. You were supposed to see takeaways from the defense. You were supposed to see big plays like a 60-yard touchdown pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones. It was obviously the post-OBJ game, and it just felt like everything changed. It came together. They have to sustain it, but to me, this feels like the turning point.
Scott Patsko, what about you?
Yeah, I wasn't ready to call this a do or die. I know that had been thrown around this week. I like to look at simulated seasons, and the Browns still had a pretty good chance of making the playoffs without this game. So I guess to me, it was more like about seeing, I really looked at this kind of like the first game of the year. I wanted to see things that were promising and productive. And I saw that with how they dealt with Bengals receivers, especially Jamar Chase. They held him to 49 receiving yards. He's been under 63 times. Bengals have lost all three of those games now. They just came up really big. The Browns, if you watch them this season, you know they've had tons of trouble with big name number one guys. If you're into efficiency metrics like DVOA, they rank 29th when they're covering number one receivers. So they just had all sorts of issues. Obviously, Denzel Ward shares a lot of that responsibility. And today, obviously, he had a huge game. It was a signature game for him. Huge game, and the pick six, getting his hand in the way to cause another pick. So there was just a lot of really good things from the secondary in general that I think the Browns have to be happy about. Even if they didn't come out a winner in this game, if they had that kind of performance, keeping those receivers out of the end zone, that's a big deal. But getting such a huge win is just a nice bonus.
I like to look at simulated seasons as like the most Scott Patsko sentence.
I don't live in reality.
By the way, Ashley Bastock, what do you think?
The biggest thing for me was just seeing the collective mentality of this team. I believe it was John Johnson III after the game saying that in a situation like the one that the Browns were in, coming off of that tough loss to the Steelers with all that outside noise because of the Odell Beckham Jr. situation, this is a team that could have tanked, and instead they came out and not only went 1-0 was the phrase he kept using again, going 1-0 every week. They went 1-0, and they did it in a pretty resounding fashion. This wasn't a close game by any means, and they really just came out, I think, and showed the mental toughness they have as a group that, as he said, starts with Kevin Stefanski in a lot of ways.
Dan Labbe?
The Bengals is the Bengals. Wow. This is 2 years in a row where the Browns are coming off a disaster against Pittsburgh. They start the game against Cincinnati by intercepting Joe Burrow in the end zone, or I guess in Denzel Ward's case, it was at the 1 yard line. They need to play Cincinnati whenever things are going difficult. I don't want to take anything away from this. Was an amazing performance by the Browns. They did so many things well, and I don't want to make it sound like it was just because they were playing the Bengals. But, man, this is 2 years in a row where maybe we look back at a win over the Bengals as the game that could save their season. And what's really important here is you kind of have guaranteed yourself that you're going to be 6-5 now after 11 games at worst. You know, you're going to beat the Lions. Whatever happens in New England next week happens. It just takes so much pressure off of next week's game against a tough New England team that's going to be, you're not just going to run into Foxborough and run over them. So I think this was a really important win. And I don't know, I think for Kevin Stefanski, every time something goes wrong, he should be able to call up the league office and say, let us go down to Paul Brown Stadium and play a football game.
Going right on the bulletin board there, Dan. The Bengals is the Bengals. I wonder how this game might have gone if Denzel Ward had not run back a 99-yard pick six on the first drive of the game. Because for all the stuff we're saying about them bouncing back and rallying and being tough, the defense let Joe Burrow march right down the field at home to start the game. 10 plays, didn't do anything. And if the Bengals get in the end zone there and are up 7-0 at home, ooh, spooky.
They turned off the lights on us.
They did.
Yeah.
They turned out the lights in the whole stadium. I don't know if this game is very, very different because, the stuff you're saying, Scott, they still covered Jamar Chase pretty well the rest of the game, but it was such an emotional swing. I think that Denzel Ward 99-yard pick six is one of the, depending how this season goes, it's like one of the 10 biggest plays since the Browns came back. Because Mary Kay, you're calling this a season-changing win. That's a season-changing play then within a season-changing win if that's what actually happens. There's a lot of good football things the Browns did. It was such an emotional momentum switch. I think it's possible we would have seen a completely different game if the Bengals would have scored there. All right, make sure you guys are listening to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. You're reading everything about the Browns at cleveland.com. For now, for Dan, Scott, Ashley, and Mary Kay, I'm Doug. Thanks for watching.